Wow, I have to follow Aaron. I wasn't expecting that. It is funny that Aaron brings up social media and how we met. We did meet through Twitter. And as you can tell, she has grown to be my very best friend. And we didn't meet each other until months after we met on Twitter. I'm Shaelynn Farnsworth. I'm a high school English teacher at BCLUW High School. And that's located in Conrad, Iowa. We're about 45 minutes north of here. I've been teaching at BCLUW for the past 12 years. And 3 years ago, our school implemented a one-to-one laptop initiative, which means we give students in our school 9 through 12 laptops to bring home with them to aid in their learning. And the first year, it was a normal progression. We tried to figure out the tool, the applications. We were basically giving digital worksheets. After a reflection at the end of the year, we decided we need to do something different next year. My personal goal was to connect myself and my students globally, and that's what I worked hard to do, knowing that Twitter was my best avenue to do so. I was just like the normal Twitter user. I lurked for a long time, trying to figure it out, didn't feel like I had anything important to say, until I followed educators. And there's a large group of educators on Twitter globally that share, connect, help one another. So that's where I went first. And I'm sharing 3 stories with you today that were all connected by Twitter. The first one is, every year I teach poetry to my freshmen. And for a bell ringer, I introduce poets, different genres, different styles. And the day that I was presenting Taylor Molly, my students instantly fell in love. Taylor Molly, does anybody know who Taylor Molly is? Taylor Molly is a former teacher turned poet, Poetry Slam winner. He writes poetry about teaching, students, borrowing pens, and he's very engaging. My students, like I said, fell in love with Taylor Molly after that. When we started the lesson, I started noticing tweets in my tweet deck tagging myself and Taylor Molly. He was probably flooded with 60 tweets that morning from my students. And one of my students, Lauren, is the queen of social media. This girl is going to be an amazing marketer. She could tell you everything about LinkedIn, Clout, Tumblr, and she is just in high school. So she's very aware of that. She asked Taylor Molly, why don't you Skype into our school? That night, we received a tweet from Taylor Molly saying, you don't know unless you ask. I would love to Skype into your school. So from Brazil, he was learning Spanish down there. He Skyped into our school in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, providing a real-life experience to our students, telling them about writing poetry, his inspirations. Our students were engaged, excited, and after they left there, they felt like nobody was off limits. They could bring any expert into our school. Wonderful experience. And the girl who's the social media queen, Lauren, came up to me afterwards and said, I feel so proud today. I feel like I've finally done something and contributed to my school. And that's when I knew I made a difference in her life. Because really, that's why most of us go into education, to make differences. I remember when I was younger, my mother signed me up to be an assistant lifeguard at the pool. And I would ride my bike down there, and I would get into the pool with the kids, and I would teach them swim lessons. And that day, during the day, when I was supervising the kids in the kiddie pool, because I wasn't old enough to sit on the lifeguard chair, I saw them demonstrating what I taught them to their parents. I was hooked. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I love making a difference in people's lives. So, through social media, my difference has grown, not only to connect my students across the state and the country, but globally. Taylor Molly Skypes in. The second example is digital citizenship. This is a touchy area, something that educators are scared of, but we must address with the youth of today. They come to school and they're asked to deplug. That's not realistic. They are plugged in the minute they wake up till they go to bed. They know how to use Twitter, Facebook, but do they know how to use it for educational reasons? No, not usually. Well, in my classroom, we focus on digital citizenship. And a perfect example was when we were doing Romeo and Juliet with another school. My student tweeted something about, we had a Twitter discussion and with the other school. My student tweeted something about Romeo being barely 16 and Juliet being only 15. Well, the kid from the other school tweeted her back and said, "Why don't you pay attention in class? You're so stupid." My whole class read that. We were having a Twitter discussion with another school on Romeo and Juliet. And they immediately, just like kids do, wanted to tweet back and attack this person. So it brought a very teachable moment into my classroom. And I told her, well, you basically have three options, kind of like Hamlet, three options. You can do nothing. You can be nasty and ruin your reputation online and tweet back to them. Or you can back up what you're saying with proof and send them a link. And that's what she did. Last week, we were down at the one-to-one conference presenting in Des Moines, and I brought a few students with me, and she told that story, and I didn't realize till then what a powerful impact something small as a tweet could have on the student's life. So for her, I made a difference in her life as well. My last story is kind of a fun one. My favorite one. Every year I teach Albert Camus' The Stranger. Has anyone read that? Nice, two people in the back. It's an obscure text, and it deals with the philosophy of existentialism. I am not a philosophy teacher, so I needed help presenting that. I took to Twitter, and lo and behold, the first tweet I get back was a teacher from Sweden. And so he agreed to Skype in with my kids. Sweden came, Skypes in, they get excited, they want to meet his students. And what started out as a lecture actually snowballed into a class project. Our students use various means of social media, Twitter, Facebook, Google Docs, and they had a presentation that they created, a 3-minute presentation with their peers in Sweden. Well, they started connecting and becoming friends outside of the classroom. And what started off as an off-the-hand comment of let's go meet our friends, our students, our peers, actually turned into us traveling to Sweden last year to meet them. And so in August, I teach Hamlet. In March, we were standing in Hamlet's castle. And it's amazing thinking that two of the girls have never even been on a plane before. Taught them so many different life skills besides just that text. It took them all the way to a different country. They had to fundraise, they had to get a passport. They had to navigate on transportation systems in Sweden, something that they will remember for the rest of their lives. And I feel like I made a difference that way. So I want to leave you with a little poem by Taylor Molly. I, of course, edited it to fit me. I think Erin will like this one. Her students know this as well. It's called What Teachers Make, or If All Else Fails, I'll Go to Law School. He said, the problem with teachers is, what's a kid going to learn from someone who feels that their best option in life is to become a teacher? He reminds the other dinner guests that what they say about teaching is true. Those who can do, and those who can't teach. I decide to bite my tongue instead of his, and resist temptation to remind them that it's also true what they say about lawyers, because we're eating, after all, and this is polite company. I mean, be honest, Shaelynn. You're a teacher, right? What do you make? And I wish he hadn't asked that, for me to be honest. Because you see, in my classroom, I have a policy about honesty and butt kicking. And if you ask for it, I gotta let you have it. You wanna know what I make? You wanna know what I make? I make kids work harder than they ever thought they could. I make a C+ feel like a Congressional Medal of Honor and an A- feel like a slap on the face. How dare you give me anything less than your best? I make kids sit through 40 minutes of study hall in absolute silence. No, you may not work in groups. No, You may not ask a question, so put your hand down. Why won't I let you go to the restroom? Because you're bored and you really don't have to go to the bathroom, now do you? I make parents tremble in fear when I call home during dinner time to tell them something their child has said that day at school. Hello, this is Mrs. Farnsworth. I would like to tell you something your son said today in class. To the biggest bully in the school. He said, "Leave that kid alone." I still cry sometimes, don't you? And it was the noblest act of courage I have ever seen. I make parents see their kids for who they are and what they can be. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. Sorry. I make them read and I make them write. I make them spell definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful, definitely beautiful, over and over again until they never misspell those two words. I make them show all of their work in math and hide it on their final draft in English. You want to know what I make? I teach my kids that if you have this, then you follow this. And if someone tries to judge you based on what you make, you give them this. Here, let me break it down for you so you know what I say is true. Teachers make a difference. Now, how about you?